So thank you, everyone. So we've have a whole slate of people who registered. So let's just take a moment of silence. I'm going to mute everyone. And let's just take a moment to ground ourselves, connect where you are. And we'll take a minute just as we welcome more people, and then we'll begin. Thank you. And as you ground yourself through your breath, from wherever you're calling right now, connecting with the sounds around you, your senses, your weight on the chair that you're sitting on. Know that on this call, even just now with the group that we have people calling from several continents, people from experiencing different times of the day or night, different climate, different terrains. Just notice how does that feel in your body as you just acknowledge that moment of connection across so much space. Maybe bring a sense of gratitude to those that made this time available to you to join on the call. It's a real privilege to take this time and connect in such a way. So thank you. So thank you, everyone. So if your eyes are closed, if you're still sitting, please feel free to open your eyes. I'm meeting Gregor and Rich for the first time, and I'm meeting Ivan in person for the first time. We've been exchanging many emails and many communications in the past, so that's wonderful. And it's wonderful seeing Monica and Dov with us for a long time, and Joshua and Barbara. And I see Ula just joined us. Welcome, Ula. So I'll just say a few words just to introduce. Ula, welcome. Can you hear me well? Okay, great. So we were just starting. We were just sitting quietly a bit and grounding. So I'll just say a few words of introduction, and then we'll continue with the day. My name is Rami Afal. I'm the Executive Director of Zen Peacemakers International. And Zen Peacemakers International, briefly, is the present-day continuation of our founder's, Bernie Glassman's, legacy for the past 30 years that he's been developing the Zen Peacemakers and really wanting to bring spiritual practice, the spiritual skills that we're developing, compassion and wisdom and presence and love and kindness, into the world, dropping that separation between the cushion and the globe. And he's been creating and adjusting different practices that he has acquired or created, whether they're the bearing witness retreats, and one of them is the street retreats. As far as I understand the history, and I'm curious about it from some of you, we'll hear a bit more later about the history of this. As far as I understand, this is a practice that he picked up from a Jesuit priest, I believe. But he adjusted it with these principles that he put together, and that are really the basis of everything that Zen Peacemakers are doing, which are the three tenets: not knowing, bearing witness, taking action. And we will speak more about these three tenets. And from my experience, the street retreats are really the most direct way to really plunge into them. And he used those words plunges a lot in his work. And the purpose of this meeting is, this is one of regular meetings we're doing every month. We have two meetings. One of them is a council format, where it's usually open in subject, where people, every one of you is welcome to join. And we're following a simple guidelines to share and meet with one another, but it's a really form of a ceremony, actually, council. There's a really way of creating a heightened presence with council. We will not do a formal council with this meeting, but we'll just use some of the guidelines that we use in council, just because we found that they really cultivate a sense of connection and intimacy. And we encourage people to just speak from the heart, meaning just from personal experience. If you have a question, or if you're going to share, it's really wonderful to always weave that into your own personal experience. If it's a question, where is that coming from? What is that inside of you that is excited about it, or curious about it, or maybe fearful about it? Listening from the heart, meaning just listening, being open, receptive, curious, not necessarily thinking about what the other person is saying, but just listening to their heart, what is actually coming up from them. We talk about spontaneity and just trusting the moment and plunging into the moment, knowing that if we're going to share, we have exactly what we need to, and the moment carries everything, and the moment will speak through us. We are recording this session. There's been a lot of interest in it. It will be wonderful to be able to share it with other people who are interested in street retreats and maybe wanting to learn more. So by being on the call, thank you for your permission in doing that. And because we have about an hour, and we're already about 10 minutes after, we just encourage people to be lean, meaning when you want to share or connect or ask a question, really just connect with yourself. Take a moment of silence even, and just connect with that essence of what is it that you want to ask or share. And like I said, we're not going to do a full council, meaning that usually there's a certain circle format that we go around. At this time, I thought it would actually be nice to open it up more of a back and forth, just because we have a very mixed group in terms of experience. And I think that's a really useful and beneficial format. So if you're interested in council, please feel free to join. Next one is in July. But we're going to do the question and answers. And I'm also recognizing there's a really interesting, in the mix of the group, we have people who have, I actually don't know, could anybody who's never been on a street retreat, could you just raise your hand for a moment? Great, great. So we have 3 people, wonderful. So welcome. And then we have a group of people who have been on street retreats, participated in them, maybe even helped organize them. You know, I'm one of them. I know Monica and Ivan have been in one of them, and many of them actually, I think, in Brazil, Dov. And then we have Joshin and Barbara, who has led street retreats. They've been leading street retreats in Europe and in the US. And I think it's a really unique and privilege to be in this mixed group. So Alice, I see Alice has joined us. Welcome, Alice. We're just starting. So what I would love to do quickly is just do a quick round, just around, I'll call on people's names and just say your name, where you're from, maybe just a couple of words of what brought you your interest in this call. So just have all of our voices join into our bowl. So let's just start. Ula, maybe just say, start with you.
Yeah, my name is Ula Yandel. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I work with people struggling with addictions and severe mental health problems, and so I deal with a lot of homeless people, a lot of people who've been on the streets, a lot of people who live in the tunnels here in Las Vegas. You know, so I've never been on a street retreat, but I sure have. I hang out in the streets.
Wonderful. Welcome, Ula.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gregor.
Yeah, hi there. My name is Gregor. I live in Santa Cruz, California. This is traditionally Ohlone land of the native people. And yeah, I live at a meditation retreat center, so that's spiritual practice is very central to me these days. And I've just been feeling this pull to explore how what engaged Buddhism in this case looks like, or what it is for me to live out the kind of life I want to live in a way that benefits all beings. And so the street retreat is one way. I'm just been curious about what that might open up and wanting to hear people's experiences. So I appreciate everyone being willing to share their experiences. Thanks.
Wonderful. Welcome, Gregor. Monica, hi.
Hi. Hi, Rami, and hi, all. I'm from Bonn, former capital of Germany, and it's now 6 p.m. in the evening, and it's getting warmer. It was quite cold, and I'm pleased about it. And 2 weeks ago, and one day, so to speak, I was in a street retreat. It was the second day of a street retreat in Paris, which was my second one. And I've done a couple of bearing witness retreats, which I also found very meaningful, deep plunges, and street retreats are something special. I don't know, in a short time I cannot express it, but what I want to bring in from the heart now, that this second time I found it very hard to be on the streets, very hard to walk as much, very hard to wake up in the nights, not every night, but and to change the place, to go to another one. And I had really come twice to a point where I didn't want to continue. And I'm still not struggling, but I'm dealing with this. It feels as if my ideal of myself also was perhaps higher or other, just other, and it makes something with me that I had this. And I even I had the imagination during the last night that if I had 20 euros with me, I would have got a taxi and gone to Dana Center because I just said I can't anymore. I can't just do it. Perhaps it was nice that I didn't have them because I was able to finish the retreat, and now I'm grateful for this. Perhaps this is a main point besides many, many, many extremely moving encounters of the streets.
Thank you so much, Monica. Thank you for bringing your presence and experience. Yeah, we'll love to hear more in a bit.
Thank you.
Ivan, hello.
Hey, hello. Sorry, my English, I hope everyone else understand a little. I am Ivan from Brazil. I live in Campinas, one city of São Paulo. And I stay in the Zen Peacemaker since 2015. When I train my Zen training and my retirement onto my job, I see Benny Rushman with a clown, nosy clown. And I see you work with natives, American natives, that Zen Peacemaker, Genro Roshi working. And this tribe of Ryoka, that have a work of the clown in the tribe. So I have interested in the Zen Peacemaker and came to study. And I now Rami, I know Monica, and I have the opportunity to invite to Brazil Barbara Roshi and Roland Roshi and my teacher Genro Roshi. 2 years ago, we tried to do a retreat in Rio, but the people very afraid because Rio is very violent city. So last year we have 12 people in the retreat in Rio 2 months ago with Genro Roshi. That was very important for me because I have drunk many times in my life. If I not stop of drinking, maybe I was homeless now. So I haven't interested in working with the homeless, with the natives, Brazilian natives, and I work with the management of the sociocracy in this group and the oppressed theater. There's one theater method of the political. So I am very happy to stay here, all of you, to sharing this experience of street retreat that for me in Rio is very important because my knee get me out of retreat after the second day. But I am beardness, I understand because it was Holy Week, and I go at the church, and I go at the process Dead Christy, and recover my contact with the Christian. So my knee take me out of the retreat of the Christian Red and get me out to church and reconnect. It's the same thing of the Zen and the Christian. I'm very happy to share this and listen with you. Have shared for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you understand.
Yes, absolutely, Ivan. Thank you so much. And it's also a good opportunity to acknowledge that we're speaking in one language in a call with people from many different countries. And it's a great privilege to those who've been speaking English as a native language. And there's at least 4 of us here who English is their second language. So I'm reminding myself to maybe slow down a little if we're speaking fast English, and definitely appreciating anybody who's coming into English to share with us. So thank you, Ivan. Rich, would you like to say hi?
Hi, I hope everyone can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
So my name's Rich. I'm from Nottingham in the middle of the UK, which is very rainy at the moment. I teach English and maths to teenage refugees in Nottingham. I'm also a poet. I'm kind of attracted to this phrase street retreats, even though I don't know anything about it yet. So really, I'm here to listen and learn because I know nothing. But I'm very intrigued by the little I know about Zen Peacemakers. So I'm just here to learn and hopefully contribute. I don't know how I can, but I hope I can.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rich. And thanks for calling from the UK. Dov?
My name is Dov. Good to see all of you. I'm from Philly. I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. And I've been on 4 street retreats. One that Bernie led, 2 that Genro led, and 1 that Joshin Burns led. And there's something about them that's really powerful. My first one was almost 20 years ago, so my body was a different body than it is today. And so I could sort of relate to what Monica was saying, that it's a little bit harder, the street retreats for me today than they were than the first one I did. And I guess I haven't done, well, I was going to say I haven't done one in Europe, but I guess I haven't done one in Europe. I did one in London about 2 years ago, and I would love to do one in Europe. I guess my question is, are they in English in Europe? You know, how does that work? And yeah, and I'm hoping that maybe next spring there'll be a couple in Europe that I could can attend. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Dov. Good to see you again. Alice, I see that your video is turned off. This is completely fine. If you'd like to turn it on and speak, I can unmute you. I'll give you a moment if you'd like.
Hi, I'm trying to get it to work.
Okay, we can hear you though. That's good.
Okay, awesome. Hi everyone, really grateful to be here. I'm from Washington, D.C., and I'm also completely new, so I'm just here to check things out and listen in. And yeah, really, really grateful for the opportunity to hear everyone's experiences. Thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Alice. Because I can't see your video, I'll keep you unmuted, so that way, if you do want to jump in or ask a question, you'll be able to do that. Okay? Because I wouldn't be able to see raise your hand.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So Barbara, hi.
Hi everyone. It's wonderful to see you and to think that you all are so spread around the world. And I like the picture behind you, Rami, which shows me about this huge globe. And I see many friends here, people I know, and new people. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation about this plunge of bearing witness to the streets. which is for me always really a big plunge, because it's really walking towards the unknown in every situation, and really to be very open. And it's always a practice of expanding myself and my view and my learning. So I'm looking forward to learn from all of you and also to share about my experiences. Wonderful seeing you all. Thanks you to being here.
Thank you, Barbara. Koho, welcome. I see you just joined. Can you hear us well?
Yes.
Okay, good. Would you like to, we're just going around saying hi and introducing ourselves. Would you like to say a word?
Yes. Did you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Koho. I'm in Zurich, Switzerland. Hi, Barbara. Yeah, I'm an enthusiast of street retreats, so it's good to be here. I came late, sorry, I was working, but I'm here. Thanks, Rami.
Great. Thanks, Koho. Joshin, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm Joshin, and I'm actually in Vermont in the United States right now, where I recently started a new Zen center, and I spent the last 10 years at Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I'm a student and Dharma heir of one of Bernie's students, Joan Halifax. And I've been doing street retreats for a while. I've done maybe 15 or 20 in different cities around the United States. And so I feel like I've been bearing witness to homelessness in our country in ways. And I've done it both in big cities and little rural communities. And I just recently came back from Washington, D.C., where I led a group of 15 or so, 12 or 15 people on a street retreat. I'm headed out in September to New York City, in November to San Francisco, and then I have a Holy Week street retreat planned for next April as well. And I went out with Genro, who trained me in street retreat practice. Very grateful to him and his practice for that. And I look forward to our conversation today because, you know, even if you've done a lot, you're always doing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Nice to be here.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Joshin. Thank you all. So I realized to my joy that I scheduled this for 90 minutes. So we actually have an hour from now. So if you can stay for that whole hour, wonderful. If at any point you need to leave, that's completely fine. But I'm glad we have time. So as we have a large group here, what I'll do is I'm just going to keep everybody's mic muted other than Alice, because we can see her. And if you want to speak, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. The other thing, just in terms of how we conduct this, you know, as people were gathering, we're sitting quietly a bit for a minute or two. And this is really a wonderful baseline for the conversation. We can always come back to that silence. Even if we feel like there's something that we immediately need to share or we want to ask a question, it's always nice to kind of go back to that silence just for a little bit to kind of to reconnect. It's often that it's there that we actually connect. So I invite myself first to slow down a bit, and also invite everybody to use that to keep grounding. So I'm just gleaning a bit from what I've heard from everyone. You know, there was a interest in not knowing. I heard that right in the beginning. Several people spoke about that, about plunging, about even language, the fact that we're using one language here, but there's some people who've been practicing in different countries. And Dov was asking about what language is the retreat conducted with in Europe, which is a very important question. I remember myself in experiences of traveling, of not being able to communicate. How is that affecting the experience of being on the street? How do we beg when we don't have language? Or do we? Another interesting thing that came up, Ivan brought up his work with the native indigenous people in Brazil. That also brings an interesting question in terms of home and homelessness and movements of people. We're seeing now tremendous amounts of people being transplanted from one place to another, geographically all over the planet. How is that related to a practice of a street retreat? Like Monica said, having to move from one place to another, not having a fixed place. What resources are available to us when we're in that state? I also remember we had a call a couple of weeks ago about plunges, and Genro remembered something that Bernie used to say, which was about that we plunge into what we fear. Not necessarily what we're excited about or interested about, but we find something that we're fearful of and we plunge into it. So what is it that we're fearful on the streets? And I'm also acknowledging that Bernie will probably laugh about us talking about plunges, because he would just say, just do it. When I asked him once about, what kind of trainings I should be doing, he would just, I'll ask him about meditation or quant study, and he would just say, just go on the streets. So he really saw that as one of the most important practices in his mind. So I'd love to go back to that silence and maybe just center a bit, and then invite Koho, Joshin, and Barbara as people who have been leading street retreats for a long time in different places. And some of you have also led a mixed kind of street retreats. I know some of you have actually done it as a sort of a plunge when you're also bearing witness to a particular social cause. So it wasn't just the homelessness. So I would love to just go back to that silence. And then if any of the three of you would like to just speak about the spirit of when you go on the street, what's the essence? Hi, Alice. Wonderful to see you. What is that? What is that thing that you plunge into? Yeah, Barbara, please.
Yeah, when I go to the streets, I really empty my ideas and all my concepts away. And the street retreats that I did happened only once in a city that I knew. It was my first retreat in Zurich, and there I felt quite familiar. But the other retreats were in other cities in Germany and also in New York. So of course, this helps also really to see everything with very new eyes and be very open, very aware of every moment. And this is really the experience of doing completely new steps and looking new in the whole day, because it is so different. So we are there without any money. We don't know the corners. Of course, as a leader, I prepare some days before that. I walk a little bit before, of course, but still everything is quite new. It's much newer than other parts that I do in my own country. So this helps me really to be more awake that I would be in my normal life, of course. And it's also very different because we look for places to sleep. We look for things to cover us up, that we will not freeze. I don't have stuff with me that I usually have. I don't have a schedule to follow out of taking good care for the people around me and be in communication with the people around me. And this is one of the most beautiful aspects of it, that we are really doing. We don't do that alone. So it's so special to do it with a whole group. So we are very connected as one body when we do that. And it's the same for all the people. It's for all of them like a very new moment. And this gives us a group experience of having a really new situation. And I think this is the part that brings us so closely to intimacy in this experience together, which is very special, I think. So we share what we get. We share our emotions that we have. We share our energy. We support each other if we lose our energy. So I was touched hearing from Monica what she said, because I had one of this experience also in a street retreat where Koho was in Nuremberg several years ago. It was such an incredible hot summer and a very hot day, and my blood pressure really sank down, and I felt completely weak, and I had the feeling, if I not get a coffee, I will feel so so bad, and I had really a hard time to go on. And finally the group bought for me a cup of coffee, and I felt immediately much better with it. So yeah, it was so beautiful, because this caring for each other is so strongly also in these experiences of kind of plunges. So I think it's very, very special. And we will have another one with Koho very soon, with a big group in August in Bremen. And the retreat was we didn't put out it really, it was full immediately, and it will be one of the biggest. We are, I think, a group of 21 now. So we had even more, and one person already said he can't come. So we had a waiting list. We will do it in 2 groups. Yeah, for now.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you, Rami.
I see Koho teleported into another room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joshin, would you like to say anything?
Sure. I mean, ditto a lot of what Barbara just said, but I think there's another aspect for me too. I confront these kind of hidden thoughts and biases that I have in my own mind. That's so much of what the practice is about. It just confronts me with these, very deep stories that I have, not only about people who are unsheltered or living on the sidewalks, but also about people who are well-resourced and the wealthy, and our economy and my political perspectives that, have become real ideologies and doctrines that I have just allowed into my life, and which have in many ways narrowed my perspective and also narrowed my understanding of who I belong to and who belongs to me. I confront this deep tendency in myself to divide up the world into good people and bad people. And I can get kind of self-righteous for a while in the process of street retreat, and really notice that that's a kind of knowing, that is knowing when we feel that way. And what is it like to endeavor to let go of that? And who am I when I let go of it? And how does my view change when I let go of it, if I can? And in that way, I find the street practice to be, like Bernie says, a very direct practice. It's like koan practice. It confronts us with the limits of conventional ways of putting the world together. And it, in some unique ways, kind of just shakes me up and loosens me up. And with time, if I'm lucky, on the street, I can relax into relationships, really, certainly with people who we meet on the streets, but relationships with these whole cities, relationships with volunteers who are serving, relationships with people who give us money, and even those who refuse to give us money. It's coming into contact and connection with, as Bernie says, all the aspects of the situation. And that can be, sometimes I don't even realize on street retreat kind of what's happening. Sometimes it just cooks in me. And in the weeks and months after, I realize, oh, something shifted. I look at things a little differently, and I feel maybe a little freer as a result of the practice. And it's interesting, in the last, sometimes street retreats, I find, we travel as a little pod, and most of our relationships are with one another. We try to open up, but, there's not a whole, depends on the situations. We find ourselves in some cities, there's a drug of choice often that we bump into. There are some cities where there's a lot of methamphetamine, other cities there's a lot of heroin, other cities there's a lot of pot, other cities a lot of alcohol. And I find that really changes the environments that we're in and the ways we engage with one another and develop relationships. In Washington, D.C., I would say of all the street retreats I've done, we've had more people from the unsheltered community join our Sangha and connect with us and travel with us for the days than any other street retreat I've been on. And I don't know exactly why, but it was, another experience that was kind of new, where we had this kind of pop-up Sangha. And there's often action that comes out of these things too, right? We talk about kind of, not knowing and bearing witness, and action arising. And in this last street retreat, one of the women who joined our Sangha on the streets turned out to be a missing person from Australia. And we've been working now for 2 weeks since we ended the retreat on connecting her back with some of her networks so that she can make some informed choices about reconnecting with her family, and all these things. Been just fascinating, really. So it's a surprising practice, I find, and a heart-opening practice, and it transforms something in my own view that I'd like to think leads to a greater freedom in the way I enter into a sense of belonging with the wider communities that I connect with.
Thank you, Joshin. Goho, I'm curious if you have anything to add.
Yes, thank you, Rami.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also started my practice with Gary Roshi. I received the authorization from him to lead street retreats. And I have did here in Switzerland, in Germany, and in Brazil. 2 times in São Paulo and this year in Rio. And right now I'm given an article about the experience. I think that an important point in this experience is the intensity. So it's really unbelievable. Explaining, I'm a formal monk, Zen monk, so I have many normal formal retreats in my history. But street retreats is like to plunge in a wider humanity that I have in myself. It's like to explore some areas that in any other situation I have conflict in both sides. So, and the experience, like here in Zurich, we can look about the policy, because if the policy come, we must go to a shelter. In Brazil, we must look the policy about because of violence. So it's like extremes of realities. But even in these extremes, always I found contentment and some spontaneity, some lightness about, okay, I have time, I don't have any commitments to my identities, like Barbara Roche said, so I can be myself at this moment. What is my desire? What is my feeling right now? And I can express, because in the streets we meet all kinds of persons, all kinds of situations. And one important point, it's impossible to have control about the situation. Like in this last retreat in Rio, we have a wonderful plan, you know, all the schedule well planned, and it was absolutely out of control. The places and the situation, it was Easter, so the institutions were closed, and we must improvise. And you know, it's like to develop a sense of trust in life that is impossible to explain. And just finishing, a very important learning that I have on street retreats is that it's possible to bring this attitude for my daily life. The most important point of bringing this attitude is to see any person as a human being, beyond appearance, beyond identity, beyond roles played in society. And this is a sort of freedom, because I can see brothers and sisters wherever I am. And when I treat another person as my brother or my sister, I receive back the same feeling. So it's like to widen my heart in a very, very effective way. And yeah, it's a beautiful experience. It's possible to link with the traditional Dharma all the time. And it's a way to develop another skills in my life. I really like very much.
Thank you, Koho. So I invite us to just come back to that silence and just take in what we just heard from Koho and Joshin and Barbara. The challenges, the difficulties, the aspirations, the insights. I'll open it up now for either questions to just drop into the circle. It doesn't have to be to those three individuals. It would be just nice, if you have something to share, or a question, or maybe a story from a street retreat you've been on that's alive for you as you're hearing this. You may have not been on one, and just listening to all of this brings a curiosity, or maybe a particular fear, or something that's been holding you back from going on one. Yeah, Monica.
Yes, I wish to share firstly that it is so good to be in this circle. It is just wonderful to be in this international Zen Peacemaker space now. And what you said about language, Rami, and also Barbara said something. Yes, this time it made a difference for me, because I felt more vulnerable. And this was also bringing me to a certain limit. I started to think about, and this brought me in my head, as some other subjects did. And perhaps I had to control something. I felt like excluded, and I longed, really. I would have longed so much, and at the end of the street retreat, others were more aware of it and tried their best to talk in English, at least. So I was heard in this. I was heard in this vulnerability, but still in times where you just share casually and people laugh, because street retreats can also be extremely funny. I really want to share this. There's so much fun because things are so bizarre. You're frustrated, perhaps, or so down, or so surprised by yourself and by life itself. This is an amazing sight, and then you do not get the jokes. So you should be, perhaps, I thought, be generous, Monica, be generous with your mates. Generous, but sometimes I could not, I must admit. And I so longed to, once in my life, before I died, to do a street retreat in Germany. I'm not really spoiled by this experience. I'm always in other places when doing sessions and when doing retreats in places where I cope with the foreign language, which gave me a lot, actually, which also trained me a lot to feel how disenfranchised people feel much, 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 much more separated by this problem of not getting anything. This is the other side of it. And this other side, I met so much in the street retreats, especially this year. It was like everything I experienced before, whether it was in Auschwitz, whether it was in mourning for our planet Earth, which is now coming up with young people, whether it is refugees I'm meeting in containers and making friends with them, whether it is with illegal people, I found it is all connected, and everything is connected. The problems and the beauty at the same time. It is something that soul and love is lacking, and we are making use of something, of a being, because it is also about animals and it is about plants. It's not only about us, about othering, using totally something. And then I saw it everywhere. I saw it also in me, how I did it sometimes in my life, and how this came, and how and how I suffered. And so, for example, to give an example, I met refugees that just came from Germany and were very, very, very frustrated and spoke German. This was a huge surprise. They spoke German because our laws have so much, are so much, what is the word for it? Getting felt more. It is harder for them to stay here, and I already was very sad about this. And there were they in Paris. I met them in Paris, and they told me how they got out now to Paris and why they preferred even Paris. So this fluency of between the countries, this was so felt. Or I met two from Africa, two friends, and they told me they had arrived at Lampedusa. I said, "Oh, hey, I know Lampedusa. Tell me, how was it? How was?" And then we laughed. We shared our joy to have survived. And then exactly after this joy, there came a big sadness, because the one said he had lost two friends dying in the Mediterranean, and the other younger one lost 20. And I couldn't believe I have heard so many stories, but this 20, I just want to share this with you. A young, very black man who has survived and was in Germany, in Lampedusa, then in Germany, and now in Paris, shares that he had lost 20 friends during his trajectory. And then we cried for some seconds, so to speak, and it was very precious, very connecting, very moving. So the beauty, the laughter, the serving, we were allowed to serve homeless, which was a huge joy, and the disastrous sorrow, helplessness, sorrow of knowing that just now people again are dying in the Mediterranean. This is some of my personal sorrows, big sorrows. I care for this. I vowed for this. I go for this. And then I shared before that I wanted to leave my peers and the place, which I found terrible. Actually, I'm not a person, I don't like this. Especially, but I was certainly able. And still, what is this? Perhaps this morning I thought perhaps it was the most honest and lovely, in a way I could say. Why not saying that a street retreat can be so hard? Why not? Because it is. And why not saying and having access to the extreme hardness that our brothers and sisters have to experience in the streets, and we will never understand, but we will a bit get. Just a little tiny bit when we say, I cannot walk anymore, I do not want to move anymore, where is a safe place, where is the next coffee, where can I have, and then being afraid of the police. I must not be afraid of the police. So this with me, I think I was in denial a bit of this, because it was so deep, so terrible, how people can feel much more helpless, exposed. I'm still on this. I will write about it, and if you read me then. I share this now. I leave others a space here. So thank you all for listening to me. I hope it was not too long. Sometimes I talk too long.
Thank you, Monica. Ivan, did I see your hand earlier? Did you want to say something?
Thank you. So I felt in this.
I'll just say goodbye to Rich. It seems like Rich wants to leave. Is that so? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Ivan.
Okay. Thank you for listening. I would like share now my view in the last retreat, my first retreat in Rio. Is for me the experience of the Sangha in the street is very strong, because here in Brazil we have a street retreat in São Paulo with Sangha of Coen Roche, our friends. Corro was disciple of Coen Roche, and Rio de Janeiro we have the Sangha of the Sensei Alcio, a little temple in the start of favela. So in this retreat, we have the opportunity to Sangha walking in the same way in the Rio. And for me, this is my experience of the integration in the Sangha, in the really you work, Zen work in the, about we have one people like my family. He carry me and carry he. I don't like it. I don't need to worry all the Sangha in the street. Only my friend no is very strong this experience of the Sangha in the not knowing and go walking. This is and this show me the homeless. There is your Sangha how else. He live and 15 people with 15 people, 50 people, but little groups take care one of the other. And when he save you to sleep with him, she would stand. We are one Sangha. Okay, you stay in this place is very good for you. And so this is a very experience about the we need to stay with the other to grow in our practice. And when I decided to start to go out to the retreat because my knee is not good, after one day I talked with Genro Roshi and Koro Roshi, Koro Sensei. They said, you decide. And so there is a great experience for me to decide, oh, my knee is not good. The group is not walking in your. So I needed to go out now because so great experience because I not, oh no, I need to go, I need to finish this. So I talked with the Genro Roshi. She grateful, amably said me, oh no, very good, many people go home. So you have a little ceremony of a canon with the group circle, because I was go out, and a very strong experience when I left the group. I felt it, and I stay in the retreat, not with them, but to wait for him and the temple for finish our practice. So it was very, very, very strong practice for me in Zen to understand many things in Zen that I not understand. There in the street, I understand what they are compassion, what they are listening, what they are believe in the way. So an experience of believe that the thing was I have afraid, not food, not bathroom, is came. And I see the people who work. I don't like people work more to help in streets. But when I stay in retreat, I see how is important to go one situation with the food, with the bathroom, with the coffee, each one in your job. So this is for me the practice, and I was very happy to Zen Peacemaker to see Zen Peacemaker in practice and growing here in Brazil, slowly but strong. So thank you, Ami and Benny Glassman, Barbara Roshi, Koho Sensei, also Sensei, everyone to give me this gift. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. Acknowledging we have about 20 more minutes. I'm curious from those we haven't heard from yet, or those who join who've never been on the retreat, if there's anything that's just been coming up from listening to all of these experiences. I can speak from my experience, and I'm not going to go long, is that I can go on for many, many stories over street retreats because they are just nothing but experience. So I'm saying that it could be like any person who's been here on a retreat, they can continue speak a lot of more stories. I'm curious for those of you who haven't been in one, is there specific questions or something that is of curiosity or a particular point of concern that you have? And I don't mean to put you on the spot. It's just alive for you. Yeah, Ula, please.
Well, I'd just like a little more information on how they were organized in the first place. Because I'm involved with a small Zender, but they're not really interested in this. So,
sure. I'm curious, Joshin, would you like to maybe say a few words on that?
And Ula may need to be muted. There sounds like there's background. And is the question how we organize them? How do you get in touch and organize them to now? Ula, is that your question, or the history?
Well, what? So, I mean, given that my Sangha really isn't, interested in this kind of thing, what if I were to lead one? How would some pointers to go around? How would I go about it?
Well, I'll pass on what Genro said to me when we first started working together, which is, stepping out and just leading a street retreat is not what we recommend. That you actually practice with someone who has done them before. And if you're interested in leading them, let that person kind of train you and give you the pointers about how to hold the space, the bearing witness space, but also how to work around with some of the issues related to safety on the streets. So I would just, I'm not speaking, I don't know where the ZPI is on these days, if they're recommending one way or another, but myself, I wouldn't recommend just organizing one without having worked with an experienced facilitator of street retreats in this method, in this tradition. And I wonder if Barbara and Koho would agree with that. Nodding their heads. And then there are ways to go on street retreats. I think the ZPI website has a calendar and posts street retreats that are coming up. And the way I've gotten to so many parts of the United States, and mine is that often when people are interested in a street retreat in their hometown, say, they might be in touch with me or Genro or some others who lead them, and ask if we might consider organizing one there. And I know I'm quite open to that. I think Genro has been in the past as well. And there's been some talk actually, and some people I know about doing one in Las Vegas, Nevada, because it's such an interesting place and a unique homeless situation there. So yeah, and then there's a structure to the time on the streets, and I think maybe each teacher holds it a little bit differently, but we probably have some shared common structures that we rely on as a way of creating the container for people to drop into the experience. And there's some legwork on the front end by the facilitator, the leader of the retreat. I think Barbara mentioned this a bit too, of getting to know the environment a little bit, just so that you can not lead people into very dangerous situations or whatever. But so for me, before the group comes to meet to begin the street retreat, I usually go out on the streets a few days before and just live on the sidewalks alone for a while in that city and get to know a little something and establish some relationships. And I just feel, for me, that's a way I can feel like I can hold the space more responsibly for others who really, need to kind of drop into that experience.
Thank you so much, Yoshin. Yeah, Gregor, please.
Thanks. Yeah, just two questions, but one's pretty brief. That's just ask Jocelyn. I think you mentioned you'd be doing one in San Francisco, and if so, when that would be, because I might be feeling interested in that. Sorry, you hearing all this sound?
Yeah, all your bells and whistles are going off.
Yeah. The second question, if you can still hear me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fable of a wise man who lived in their...
Is that fear. That's really, how anyone wanting to share a story about encountering fear and how it was engaged with in a skillful way or not, learned from, because that sort of feels like something both that feels like inhibiting, but also something that's really attracting me to this practice.
Let me just say, I think around the San Francisco Street Retreats is already posted or will be posted on the ZPI website. And I'm also at a place called Breadloaf Mountain Zen Community, and you can look on our website there. And I'll say something about fear and then kind of hand it off a little bit. I asked Bernie once, actually, on one of these calls about a year or two ago. We were having a discussion about something similar, and someone said she was afraid. And Bernie, in a very halting way, said, I wonder if fear is a kind of knowing. And I've sat with that for a long time, because there is this fear on the streets sometimes. And it's important, I think, to discern what this fear is about a little bit. And so part of going on the streets is about not knowing practice, but it's not about being stupid, and it's not about being ignorant. So in some ways, it's learning to understand your fear and to work with it. When is it a justifiable fear that then teaches you something and that you should respond, and use it well? And when is it a fear that's really an abstraction, that's really just an idea that we have that actually can be loosened up and deconstructed because it gets in the way. And I think this is part of what happens. I recently had an experience where I should have been afraid, and I was afraid. And that fear then led me to take the right action to get myself out of that situation, you know? So again, like little words like fear have to be kind of understood in a bigger way, because it's not so simple as just going out on the streets and saying, well, I'm not going to be afraid of anything. It's learning the terrain of your own mind and what is fear and how do you learn from it and what do you do with it.
Thanks, Joshin. You know, I'm just thinking about fear as, you know, we talk about plunges in fear as if it is something that we're supposed to somehow vanquish, right? Or somehow conquer. And like Joshin was saying, that, you know, it can be an indicator that something that I really need is not being paid attention to. And for me, usually the experience of fear is actually comes through anger. And I remember there was one point on the street in DC. I was there in September with Genro, and we were supposed to have breakfast somewhere. We woke up very, very early in the morning. There was one place that was supposed to be open. We arrived there after walking for about an hour and a half in the rain, and it was closed. And it was closed. And the wrath that I felt towards the person who organized it and towards, you know, the whole situation, it was just anger. And then at that moment, I wasn't even recognizing it was fear. But there were other suggestions. People said, well, there's another soup kitchen we can go. It will open up in an hour. We can just make it. And I was, I didn't want to have anything to do with that. I just wanted to, like, you know, go to the next nearest Starbucks and just either, you know, either beg or get money. It's like, I just wanted in a way out. And I found that anger is usually the first, it's kind of like a bottle cup. It's like a bottleneck. The anger doesn't even let me feel fear. And only once I got through that anger, I was like, oh, I'm just afraid that I'm going to be really hungry. I'm just really afraid of not surviving. It was really like a panic of death. I mean, I'm not making it too dramatic, but it was. And so for me, it usually the fear comes up with a very strong kind of sense of like, well, I'm just going to take care of myself. And I'm going to make sure that I'm, you know, I got my things lined up. And I remember actually saying that to Genro and to the group. We kind of did a vote. And I said, well, I don't need to go to a soup kitchen. I can just go somewhere, sit quietly, you know, get some money and eat. And Genro said, well, we don't go to a soup kitchen to eat. And I was like, well, I want to go to eat. He was like, no, we go to be with other people. So my fear wasn't even on the radar of what his intention was, because my fear was so strong that I'm going to be hungry, as if I'll die if I wouldn't eat. And it's amazing just how fundamental that was, being thirsty, needing have. So it really goes to those basic needs of shelter, of disappearing. Gregory, I'm curious if that in a way responds to you. I see Koho's hand. I think I saw Monica's also. I saw Barbara. I also want to check in with Alice. I'm curious if you have anything before we open it up to others who spoke already.
Yeah, I thought that first of all, like everyone's experiences were really deep and moving, and so thank you all for sharing that. And it kind of flashed back to some instances when I was traveling and like being on the streets. It's just like once in a situation like that, yeah, that raw survival instinct kind of just kicks in, and I guess my question is like, in DC and like even San Francisco, especially in the United States now, like how is it that the innovation that's popping up, how can we sort of mesh that with what we have experienced going in, and like how do people see that opportunity for the many, right, as sort of leaving a lot of people, and I guess a lot of it plays into the organizations and people who do stop by and help. So there's also like that kind of hope in a sense. But yeah, because I'm totally new, I love to get to know more people in the DC area that are working on this. And it's really touching to hear everyone's stories.
Thank you, Alice. So I'm hearing in your question just where is the place of the proactive innovation and hopefulness? How is that manifesting in the retreat? Was that your question?
I guess, sorry, my cat. I guess because recently I've been researching a lot about like sustainable development and the tech industry, clean technology, because that's my background. But I can also see how like that is creating a lot of economic disparity in some cities, and I don't know if there's already like something bridging that gap for I don't know, like skilled professionals to come and see more of these things. But the reason I said that there's a lot of hope is I think Josen mentioned when they were in DC that kind of this pop-up Sangha came up, and that was really that was something for me like really helpful to hear about. Like you don't need a super institution or something like I don't know. I don't know if there's any suggestions, but the bakery, the Greystone Bakery, hearing that was one of another like organizational movement happening.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. Yeah, so I'm just hearing the questions from the concern of like, what are the acknowledgement of the impact from the wealth disparity and gap, and just how's that being looked into it. Yeah, very important. So we have only a few more minutes, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time and dedicated to come here. I did see a few hands before. I saw Barbara's hand. I did see Monica's. I'm not sure if I saw Dov's. So maybe we'll take two very, very brief ones. I saw Koho also. I think I saw your hand up. So if you'd like to share, just please raise your hand. Let's see. Koho.
Just one word, Remy. As Yoshimi Sensei said, living in the streets for some days, I can discover what is real fear. And when I have another feelings dismissed as fear and not having nothing, many of our fears just gone. And then we can really be in touch with our real fears. And one of the most important fears that I think that I have had before, I hope, is about asking what I need. Because then I must know what I need. This is a big problem. So this is a big learning for the streets.
Very good point. Thank you. Barbara, any concluding thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, for me, when I first heard about street retreats, I was so afraid about the idea to do it. So I felt that I had to do it. And what's the most important was for me was this half a year, when I knew I will do it in a half a year, to look in my mind about what happened in my mind, about my thoughts. And I have to say that doing the street retreats, they took a lot of fear away from me, really. So, so many things were not familiar with me, and now I know most of the homeless here in Bern, and I have a complete different approach to them. We speak together, and I think this really came out because I had to deal with the issue of the other, and these others came so much closer in my life. So, and all my fears about myself that I had before in my thoughts, where to go to the toilet, to the bathroom, and where to get this and how to beg, this was all not a problem at all. And I just learned about a huge generosity and such beauty in people, which I could ask for something, so that I feel very grateful. And it was wonderful to listen to all of you. I feel very touched. And about you leading the group, Rami, was really great. Thank you so much. So thank you to all of you. And I mean, Joshin said everything about the safe container. I very much agree that this is it's very important. And so nobody would just go with a group on the street without being able to do this container, to work on it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Barbara. So maybe just for closing, and I'm sorry if we haven't gotten to anyone else who wanted to speak. Thank you, Barbara and Joshin and Koho, for leading these retreats for all this time and sharing from your experience, and for everybody else who either shared from questions or experiences. Usually we close council with a dedication, and I want to dedicate the connection and all the needs that's been nourished here in this short time together from different people from different places of the planet, sense of connection, sense of communion, and sense of abundance, the invocation of generosity, fearlessness, and the acknowledgement that there's so much more to bear witness to on the streets for ourselves and for others. Don't have that privilege of introspection. We're really in that survival day by day. So may this energy and may these hearts that we've cultivated this afternoon or morning or evening, wherever you are, benefit, grow and benefit. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to unmute all so you can just say goodbyes. Please check the directory for street retreats. Joshin's coming up. Barbara has a few coming up. Please come on more of these calls on different subjects, different themes, councils, more ways to connect with other members. So thank you for being part of this today. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Wow.